Today we'll just be having a quick chat about the sad news that Adepticon has been cancelled, and the wider ramifications of there perhaps being fewer tournaments in the coming months. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics. Now a few days ago I recorded a bit of a discussion about how the unfolding virus situation is likely to be affecting wargaming in the near future, and how we might be seeing some less tournaments in the future. Now things have progressed very quickly since then. Adepticon in particular has gone from the position of, yes, we're still doing this, but we're putting into place these precautions, to sadly having to cancel the event. On their website they've released a press release, which I'll link in the video description below, saying that their priority is always the attendees, and as per both their feelings and the government advice, they've decided it's the most sensible thing to just cancel the event this year. Now this is a really big deal, both for everyone who had bought tickets and was planning to attend. Many people were getting very hyped, getting their armies together. I'm sure lots of travel arrangements and accommodation has already been booked. I really do feel sorry for all of these poor people. It's just incredibly bad luck that this would happen this year. I also feel really bad for the people who have organised Adepticon, as putting together a huge gathering of people like this is no mean feat, and I honestly can't begin to imagine the amount of time, effort and money that's been expended in organising this event. So it must be absolutely tragic to have all their hard work go to nothing. They have said that they'll be refunding all the attendees, and they'll be getting in touch with them themselves. The cancellation of one of the world's biggest 40k events really does go some way to highlighting what sort of impact this virus might be having on the game as a whole, and I'm sure on Games Workshop this year. In the rest of this video I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. I personally feel that tournaments and tournament results do help both Games Workshop writing the rules and help the state of the game as a whole, and by not having them about, I don't think it's quite as easy to highlight the strongest units and rules in the game, and the ones that might potentially need a bit of a balance redress in future FAQs and erratas. I personally feel that the competitive side of the game, where only the strongest rules and lists survive, and typically then only played by the best players, really serve as a magnifying glass to highlight the single strongest rules in the game, and the ones that might be keeping other armies from playing on a more level playing field. Earlier today I released a video talking about the relative strength of the different armies, and ranked them in tiers from weakest to strongest. Ideally in 40k, we wouldn't have tier ranking lists like this. In theory, everyone should be able to compete on a level playing field with the rules and points cost available. But this has never been the case in Warhammer 40k, and indeed most similar games of its complexity. Some stuff is just typically always better than others, and exact balancing is almost impossible due to many other factors such as the state of the meta, auras and synergies, and everyone having different opinions on what's strongest in the game. I kind of feel that tournaments are a bit like a laboratory, where you distill the various options until only the very strongest survive, and in 8th edition Games Workshop has quite a good history of looking at the results of major tournaments such as Adepticon, seeing which lists are stomping the field without much thought and being played by a lot of players because they're so strong, and trying to bring them back into line with either simple rules changes or a few points adjustments. This has happened before, such as the Castellan nerf, where we had about a year of Castellan Knights stomping the meta and making most vehicles unplayable, and Games Workshop eventually cottoned on to their repeated successes and took them down a peg. We've had it even more recently with the cogitated Marston stratagem making Iron Hands Leviathan Dreadnoughts virtually unkillable, and I'd argue as a direct consequence of this being played so heavily at the LVO and indeed winning the entire thing, that individual rule was directly addressed in the recent Space Marine FAQ. Now if these major events aren't happening, then Games Workshop might be even slower to make balance adjustments to the armies, meaning that if they do happen to release any overpowered rules in the near future, then they're not going to be corrected quite as fast. So it honestly is a bit of a shame for the balance of the game as a whole, in my opinion. I was certainly looking forward to seeing how Space Marines were performing at the tournament after they've had their new doctrines change, and to see if any other major builds break through, but it looks like these things just aren't going to happen in the near future, as it's looking likely that quite a lot of the world is going to be placing similar restrictions on big events like this in the future. Now I know that's just one of the many negative effects that the cancellation of big events like these is going to cause. There are amazing social occasions where you can meet new people and catch up with people who you've seen before at other ones. By having less social interaction to do with 40k, it's certainly not going to be helping the growth of the game. I think at least some people won't be as motivated to collect and finish painting some armies, as going to events can be a bit of a motivator to do this. I'm sure Games Workshop sales are going to be hit just in general over the next year. Indeed, their share price has been tumbling a bit over the last few days, and less money for Games Workshop will in general mean they'll be a bit less adventurous with new ideas that they push forwards, and focus on things that make guaranteed profits, which isn't necessarily very good for consumers. It really just is a bit of a bad situation all round, both from health impacts and economic impacts. One thing I'd be interested in is if the use of Tabletop Simulator increases in popularity due to events being cancelled. I do wonder if anyone who's a bit enterprising will try and run a Tabletop Simulator style tournament for 40k in the near future to facilitate some of the competitive games without actually having to meet up in huge groups. In any case, I do find this incredibly sad news, and the sooner this situation returns to some semblance of normality, the better for everyone. I guess at least in the meantime we can start getting a lot of miniatures painted. There might be ample time for that over the coming months. Sorry for a slightly depressing video. I'll be very much returning to the regularly scheduled tactics content tomorrow, with a look at the Warhound Titan and the Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company, and when we get the rules for Saga of the Beast, I'll definitely be starting some Space Wolf and Orc reviews, which I know have been requested quite a lot down in the comments. So feel free to check back later if you'd like to see those. And in any case, thank you very much for listening to another Auspex Tactics video. I'll see you guys next time.